Exactly. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, George. Go ahead with what you were going to say.
Oh no, you're fine. I actually forgot what I was going to say, but it's I just can't stand the fact that you hear folks like, oh, they played a big game and they choke. Okay, and this is the flip side, right? I mean, we talked about the tickets thing. We talk about this. It's not a choke. College sports is so different today,
It is.
and I'm not an apologist. It sounds like I'm an apologist, some people will say. But stuff happens. It happens in the pros. It happens in the pros. And you don't, the one thing I never understood is why folks aren't harder on professional players than they are on college athletes. The student athlete. It's night and day.
Oh,
Go
I
beat up
mean,
go beat up the guy that's getting paid $25 million a year.
exactly. That's never made any sense. And I guess this is not an excuse either. The only thing that I could the only thing that comes to mind when you say that. Oh, and by the way, George, as long as we've been going, I might actually make this a 2 or 3 part video, a series.
Okay.
I think people might actually like that. Um, I remember talking to my older brother once, and this is actually a pretty cool story. It was I think it was the Boston College game in 1992 when they filmed the football scenes in the movie Rudy.
Okay.
My dad and my 2 older brothers were in the stadium that day when they filmed those scenes. And my older brother was telling me, like, he's like, Sean, it was not only was it fun just to be at the game. I mean the Rudy scenes being filmed were a bonus. But the game itself, it was just so much fun to watch. He's like, Reggie Brooks had one of the most incredible runs that I'd ever seen in my life. And I go back and watch myself, and Reggie even told me himself that it was all they were trying to do was play for better punt position, but he ended up running 70 yards or whatever for a touchdown. Um, but my brother was just talking about how much of a fun day they had being on campus and watching the game and tailgating. Well, then uh, I also have family that live in Indianapolis, and so the next day they went to Indianapolis to go to a Colts game. I forget who the Colts were playing that day, but they're like, I'm not having as much fun here as we did at Notre Dame yesterday. And I'm like, and when my brother tells me this, I'm like, how is it you guys weren't having fun? He's like, well, we just weren't. We actually left that game at halftime, the Colts game. And I'm like, well, did you ever think about why though? And he's like, oh, of course. And I think what it is, Sean, is compared to an NFL game compared to college. College is just like fun, like a party, like the atmospheres are just totally different. An NFL game is more like, it seems more like a business structure kind of set up. Like the fanfare that you would get for a college game is not the same as an NFL game.
No, no. I've been to my professional games, and I'll be honest with you. People complain about. I mean, I'll say, you want to talk about things being loud. People will complain about there's not a lot of noise at Notre Dame, and I said it myself. The only one loud game that I really heard was against Michigan. And you go to a professional football game, it's quieter than a college football game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. Is it because you have a bunch of dads, from the majority of the part, not to leave out our female listeners, but you know,
They do exist, believe it or not. We
they
do have
do.
women that listen to this show. It's not all for guys.
But the vast majority of the folks that attend those professional football games are older gentlemen. And it's a different atmosphere. People just need to embrace what they have. You know, when the interesting thing is I different parts of my career, I was like, you know what, I want to move to a sports town. Okay, I want to go, and we were talking about Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. Okay, and there's no surprise. I
I
love
hear it's a lot
Pittsburgh
of
for what
fun.
it is. And they have professional hockey. They have football. They have, and they got baseball. Okay, three sports that I enjoy. Okay, but in my backyard, I got the University of Notre Dame. Hockey's great, basketball's great. You know, the baseball's great, lacrosse is great.
Yeah, all the spring
It's
sports are on a
it's
tear so far.
but you know what? No one talks about them. You know what I'm saying? They don't talk about them until they lose. Notre Dame baseball is third in the country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And no one's really talking about it. But if they
Well,
lose tomorrow, if they were to go lose tomorrow, or they lose two or three series, well, these guys suck. You
no,
know what I'm
I've
saying?
been watching the YouTube videos, the highlight videos that the Notre Dame page puts up. That baseball team has been playing extremely well, and those highlights don't tell the whole story, because you only see, obviously, only in highlights you only see bits and pieces. But this is a baseball team the last couple of years, especially last year. When you actually heard some names like Nico Cavadas being mentioned, you know, getting more national attention, you know, which you hadn't really heard that for a long time. I mean, that says something about a program. Just shows you how undervalued a lot of these teams are. But yeah, you got baseball kicking some butt. Hockey's been doing phenomenal. I mean, I think they came short at Michigan last night, didn't they?
2-1. They
Two to
lost.
one.
Yeah.
And now the way hockey said, do they play that in series, or is it at the point where it's one and done now for?
Well, now it's a one and done.
Okay,
So
and that was the Big Ten tournament, correct?
that's the Big Ten tournament. They're gonna make the Frozen Four.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I figured this was only um
Conference.
conference tournament, and then the Frozen Four was still coming up yet. Yeah.
Yep.
But no, yeah, you're right. Hockey's been on a tear. Baseball's on a tear. I mean, I'm not really big on lacrosse, but both men and women's lacrosse seem to be doing pretty well.
Yep.
Women's basketball, which we hadn't mentioned yet, they're doing pretty cool things too. I mean, they, after Muffet left, and I forget the women's coach's name.
Coach Ivy.
Coach Ivy, that's it. I couldn't think of Ivy. Her first year wasn't exactly phenomenal, but now here they are turning it around, and I think they're in kind of the same position that the men are as far as rankings go.
I mean, they're once again they'll probably make the tournament. They're gonna. I mean, they are gonna have a. There's gonna be a selection show, to see what's going on. But it's a tough it's a tough it's a tough road. Women's team went 22-8 this season. Okay, last year. I mean, it's so hard to talk with COVID. They were 10-10, and then the year previous, they were 13-18. Okay,
So
once
same
again,
situation.
it's exactly the same situation, and and they're not selling out. Okay, it's tough. I'll be honest with you. There's so much crap going on around here with the whole COVID crap thing. It's hard to go to a basketball game. No one wants to go to a game and you got to wear a mask. Okay, and that I'm not. We won't get into the debate about that.
Yeah, this is not
But,
a politics
but
thing.
the basketball attendance is probably partially due to the mask requirement that you're asked to be wearing. They're relieving the mask requirement this week, starting tomorrow. Okay, but there's folks that are not going to go to a game and they're not going to, they don't want to wear a mask, or they're not going to go. But you still got to get behind the team. Yeah, does it hurt a little bit when you lose to a team? I mean, the women's team, like the men, they had a couple sporadic losses, but it's stuff happens. Does the Louisville Cardinal team get the women's team take a beating when they lose? They went and they lost. They were stunned. They were the number one seed. So, it's about perspective, I guess, Sean. This is what it comes down to: is where do you just know what you got to do, be a fan, and not criticize so much.
It's just people got to realize, and I even have to take a step back and sit myself down and tell myself the same exact thing. College sports, I'm talking strictly college, not pros. College is, and I'm not saying the pros aren't this, I'm not, but there's, like I said before with the comparison, there's a different level of it. And when it comes to college athletics across every sport, it's hungry, 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 hungry. Even the lowest team in the rankings, they're hungry because they have something to prove. Even the number one team obviously has something to prove because they were given that ranking for a reason. So it's hungry all across the board, and it's it's based like a pack of dogs fighting over that one piece of raw meat that gets thrown into the cage. I mean, they are all hungry to another level.
I do another show with another guy on a weekly basis, and we were talking to a coach in which the team was 2 and something last year as an NCAA Division One, I believe, team. Okay, 2 losses, 2 wins all season. Okay, they changed coaches. The team already has 5 wins this season. Do you think that they're getting criticism if they lose an occasional one? No, because when you swing the pendulum, people should be appreciative of what's going on. I guess it comes down to the mindset. And I had this conversation the other day. You and I grew up in an era where everybody got something for whether they won or lost, right? Everyone got a little something. Okay, we it was called, why do we need to give participation trophies? Because it's a false sense, right? People hate when you lose. It should be what it is. But not everyone's going to win all the time, and you just got to learn to deal with it. And the
Yeah, I mean,
university owes the fans nothing. I'll say it again. The university owes the fans nothing. The university does not owe the fan a national championship.
yeah, I mean,
It's
because
it's not on the table.
you see, here's the thing: you are not forced to be a fan of said school. You committed yourself to that. It's not like, see, unlike the players, the university doesn't come and ask you to be a fan. You chose to be a fan because there was something about it that you liked, that you fell in love with, and then, but for some reason, when that school that you fell in love with, when they have, that they do something that you may not like, if whether that be losing a game, or you have disdain for a coach that's coaching the team, or whatever, then you just give up on it. I mean,
Well,
that's not crap on the team losing, or the coach. That just shows your true self as a fan, and that you're really, you know, you're not really that committed. You're a fake fan.
well, I was just gonna say, you know, it's kind of like when I moved out here to the Midwest. Okay, for years I had been a Rangers fan. Okay, living on the East Coast, I love the Rangers, and it got to a point where they just weren't investing in the team, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't winning, and I just pulled all out. I just totally removed myself. And when I moved out here to the Midwest, my wife, first of all, was a Penguins fan, so I followed the Rangers and the Penguins. Okay, it's like I follow the Giants and I follow the Steelers. When I moved out here to the Midwest, I was like, I need a hockey team. You know, I had to be careful because I didn't want to jump on a bandwagon, because when you do that, it's a false sense.
Yeah.
It's like everyone in folks here in Indiana saying that they love the Warriors. Okay, no, you like the fact that they're winning championships. Okay,
Yes,
you got
exactly.
to nestle in and you got to do the time. If you really like the team, you're invested, right? And you go for the ride.
and regardless what happens, fine. If they lose, be upset about it. But you stick with them even when they lose. I mean, look at me. Myself, I'm probably a fan of every team that seems cursed right now. I mean, granted, yeah, the Cubs broke their streak, yes, but I love the Cubs. I love the Bears.
Be
I
mad at the
love I love
management. Go out and be mad at the Bears management. That's that's legit. Be
oh
mad at
that
the players.
that's what when I say that you made that's a great point, George. The times that I've been mad at the Bears, it's been mostly coaching or the ownership front office, and same with pretty much same all across with all my teams. It's all been mostly management. I mean, yeah, when a player on the field makes a mistake, yeah, I have my words about that, but that's a player trying to make a play at least. Things are going to happen on the field that are sometimes out of your control. But no, whenever there's been a problem, it's usually the result of management, and I take it out where it should be taken out on, you know?
Uh,
And
Student athletes, they don't deserve it. They're out there busting their butt. I talked with a gentleman that covers the Navy, and I know this is not a Navy program, but it's
no, that's
another
fine.
example.
It's
Those
relevant.
guys, you talk about a program that has difficulties in winning. Okay, straight up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Navy's a great school. Full respect for them. I've done press conferences with the Navy in different aspects, and they have it harder than your typical student athlete.
Oh, yes. I think I know where you're going with this, but please continue.
You have a morning regiment. You got to go up for the morning lineup. You got mess hall, right? You got studies. Then you hit the books and everything else. Oh, and maintaining weight.
Yes.
Okay, so once again, one, no one should ever hate on an academy. First of all, plain simple there. But there's got to be respect for what they go through in the regiment and for what they're doing.
Oh, I forget which player it was. I can't remember if it was a Navy quarterback or a flanker or whatever. What during when they played at Notre Dame, it was a Notre Dame broadcast. I remember they showed this guy's daily schedule, and it's like, holy crap!
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
sunrise to sunset thing.
It was almost like what we were talking earlier about some of the athletes at Notre Dame's schedule. I mean, I mean, of course, when you're in one of the military academies, I'm sure it's tougher because there's like physical, like what you call it, like drills that
You
they
got
have
your
to do and whatnot.
PE. You got PE regardless.
Yes. So what I'm saying is it's an insane schedule. They're worked to the gills. So it's like, yeah, I mean, to criticize anybody who has a schedule like that, it's like it goes back to what we were saying before. Okay, you're the fan. You're not seeing everything what goes on in this guy's everyday life or these players' everyday lives. You only see them one day, and that's on Saturdays in the fall.
And they have their whole life in front of them yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's okay to be pissed off when things don't go right on the field, but and yes, do the players need to learn to take criticism? Yes, but they're still in school. They're still learning. They're not they haven't quite gotten started on the real world yet.
Well, and see, Sean, and this happens even with early recruits, right? Everyone gets excited about early recruits. Yeah, yeah, we got this guy. He's coming in. Rah, rah, rah. You know, two different avenues. One, you get the 4 and 5 star player that comes in and nothing comes of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a dud. Okay. Or You have the player that comes in that's 2 or 3 star or no stars, and he's one of your bigger successes. Okay, but you're all over these guys even when they decommit, and it to me it's like a job. You know, you're going, you're verbally committing. So when you verbally commit, there's not much excitement to be had other than you're saying yes, I'm going to do this. Okay,
I'm excited that the guy has us on his radar, but I'm not going to get 100% in until I see his name signed on that dotted line.
ink to paper is when it counts, and you should never ever ever criticize that student athlete that changed their minds because they've made a decision on their career, right? As far as what they want to do, when you have opportunities to make yourself better and get your promotion at work or get a better job. It's a double.
Exactly.
It goes back to that double standard.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And you expect these guys to, well, they should be committed when they're there, yes. But people think that they necessarily have to be committed strictly to them and not have their minds open. Well, it's like you said, George. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Myself, I've worked at several different companies in my life. Can I really say that I'm a committed person in that aspect? No, I can't. I haven't been with one company for, 20 years or whatever. And that's because anytime I've seen a chance to better myself, to better my situation, whether it be location wise, financially, whatever, I'm going to make that switch and get a better opportunity for myself. And even so with these college kids, like, okay, you have a guy who either decommits or he leaves after, I don't know, a couple seasons, enters the transfer portal. Um, that's not necessarily saying that he didn't like being there. Maybe he was just buried too deep on the depth chart and was never going to get his time. There's several different factors.
There are a lot of different factors,
And some of them are bad. I'm not going to say that. Some of them are very poor reasons for leaving. But,
we've built a
you know,
society, Sean, that's very soft, and it's all
yeah.
about me. It's all about I, right? And that goes for every single one of us. I have those moments on occasion. I'm sure you've had those moments on occasion where it's all about you, right?
Yeah, I
And
have.
and that's just human nature. But for it to be all the time, you're not setting yourself up. And really, in the end, all you're doing is you're giving yourself more unneeded stress than you really need. In a
Yeah.
nutshell,
Yeah, and that's what it basically comes down to is these are kids that are starting to become adults. They're working their butts off. They are doing everything they can to not only make themselves better but make their respected teams better. And that needs to be respected regardless of the result on the field. That's a person who that's a well person. That's a young man or a young woman that is making a commitment to try, and they are working. And you
they're
know,
committed to two people. They're committed to two parts of the process. They're committed themselves, and they're committed to the school. There's not a third factor where it says I'm committed to the fan.
yeah, and I kind of said this earlier a little bit, but I don't remember seeing there being fans who sign contracts or letters of intent. You
No,
know,
now I've had some jokes with some folks that said, "Hey, I want to stop following this team and I want to become a that team fan." You know, there's the old joke thing that's out there. Well, you need to sign the waiver saying, and then you got to do your penance with this team, and then you can come, be the fan. I mean, there's always the opportunity for you just to say, "I'm not doing this anymore."
yeah, because what are you
But
going to
you want to
get?
be wrapped. You want to be tied to an organization that has a history of success, and that's what everybody wants. Success doesn't happen all the time in life. That's just the way life is.
Exactly. And I made the joke too, like with people, and you've heard the jokes about you need to have your fan card taken away and all that, and
Yep.
uh, you know, sometimes that should be the case where you actually have a card saying what team you cheer for, and if you're gonna become this fair weather fan. Of course, I've said a million times the word that's really popped up the last couple of years amongst our fan base is the word realist, which I've said this many times before, but like the whole stadium thing, I'll say it until I see otherwise. But when we made the playoffs against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, I have never heard the word realist more in 1 month than I have in my whole life. And that's the only time of any other big name school that I've seen, whether it be from the pre BCS era, the BCS era itself, or now the playoff era. I have never seen that Rose Bowl that we made in the playoffs. I've never seen any team get upset about actually making the postseason. But I'm not, again, this wasn't the whole fan base. It was like what was that word you used earlier to describe the negative ones?
It was so good I forgot it.
Yeah. No, it wasn't catalyst. It was I don't know. But all I'm saying is like the ones who always do the complaining and the ones that make the most the negative ones that make the most noise. But I have never seen any fan base, and I hate to put everybody in one, but that's yeah. I've never seen so much negativity about actually making the playoffs. People actually disappointed that we made the playoffs.
Well, it's because they were proven wrong.